Order 66 was undoubtedly the most devastating event in the Jedi Order's history. In the blink of an eye, nearly the entire Order would be wiped out in a single stroke all across the galaxy. The Sith returned and claimed control for themselves. What followed was Vader and his Inquisitorius, hunting down any remaining Jedi that they could find. This event is in its entirety known as the Great Jedi Purge. However, the name Jedi Purge as a title is a bit of a misnomer, as there was another Jedi Purge that occurred 3,000 years prior. This was the first Jedi Purge, and took place deep into the Old Republic era. The Dark Lords responsible are the Sith Triumvirate, but mainly Darth Nihilus, the Lord of Hunger, as well as contributions indirectly by individuals such as Revan. The Sith Triumvirate caught the eye of the already weakened Jedi Order by storm, and almost rendered them entirely extinct, as they were not prepared for such a threat. At the kicker, this was all Revan's fault. Though interestingly enough, there is very little information surrounding exactly how this purge took place, or what measures the Sith took to nearly destroy the Jedi. But we are determined to discover the truth of the first Jedi Purge, and unveil a detailed look at exactly what happened during the days of the first Purge, an event that some believe was far worse than Order 66. The year is 3954 BBY. To set the stage, this is 2 years after the ending of the Jedi Civil War and the death of Darth Malak. Revan, now having gained back his memories, has vanished once again into the unknown regions, only telling the Jedi that he has gone in search for the Sith Empire, the Sith directly who had turned him to the dark side in the first place, Emperor Vitiate. Unfortunately, this was a time when Revan of all people would be needed the most in the galaxy, as the Jedi was on life support. Around this time, the Jedi had suffered several wars in quick succession to one another. There was the Great Sith War first, introducing Exar Kun only a scant 50 years before the Mandalorian Wars and the time of Revan. The war with Exar brought great calamity not only to the Republic, but took a huge blow to the Jedi Order's numbers. Immediately after this would be the Mandalorian Wars, and following that was the Jedi Civil War thanks to Revan and Malak. 3 not just conflicts, but full-scale wars in a single lifetime. It is extremely underestimated just how many Jedi lives were lost during each of these conflicts, with thousands of them dying across the short time frame of around 50 years. The Jedi Order was severely weakened, not able to sustain heavy losses within that time frame. On top of all of this, to make matters worse, the Jedi had also sustained a terrible loss. Much of their lore and knowledge had been destroyed in the Great Library on Ossus in the Great Sith War, and next would be the ruin of the Enclave of Jedi on Dantooine during the Jedi Civil War. Many important holocrons, records, and histories had been scattered, lost, or looted during the conflict, resulting in only a tiny number of experienced Jedi remaining to instruct new students in a more difficult era, with less information and knowledge, subpar training methods, and inadequate weaponry and tools. The Jedi were a shadow of what they had once been, broken down, and severely beaten. The Jedi Order was on life support. If this wasn't bad enough, morale within the Jedi Order was at an all-time low. 2 out of 3 of these devastating wars had been started by former Jedi, and during the fighting, the Order watched a great many of their brethren fall to the dark side. Much of those who remained, though, even council members, were questioning the teachings of the Jedi. They were growing disillusioned with the Order, asking themselves how so many Jedi had fallen to the dark side so easily. The losses were so severe that barely over 100 Jedi remained after the Jedi Civil War of Revan and Malak. 100 Jedi. This is the estimated number of those that survived the initial stage of Order 66. 100 Jedi remained before the first official purge began. Revan leaving for the unknown regions was crippling. He was by far the most knowledgeable and powerful Jedi around, and he seemingly abandoned them. The Republic and the Jedi lost a hero to rally behind. The Republic as an entirety was teetering on collapse, their foundations ruined by the constant galaxy-spanning war. The average citizen of the galaxy of this time began to fear the Jedi instead of trusting them. This caused some Jedi to grow resentful towards the institution that they swore to defend, as after everything, they now not only lost faith of the Republic, but they had sacrificed many lives to protect them. Unlike the Jedi of the Clone Wars, this was certainly not a Jedi Order that was at full strength or numbers. No massive clone army or Order 66 was needed for this purge, and that's when the Sith arrived on the scene. ready to strike the killing, decisive blow to an injured, bleeding Jedi Order. The Sith Traya, Sion, and Nihilus formed what is called the Sith Triumvirate, and arrived in a ghost ship of Nihilus's own design, a vessel known as the Ravager, manned by an undead crew. Wisely though, the Sith did not make a massive announcement of themselves. Instead, they stayed secret, traveling around the galaxy like wraiths of death, grim reapers seeking the souls of Jedi. The Sith had created a genius, but a simple plan, waging what they called a shadow war. This shadow war had one goal: the extinction of the Jedi Order. The Sentinels that protected individual systems known as Jedi Watchmen had already began to step down from the Jedi, as they were too public of figures, and feared that the Sith would come for them. This left those planets weak, and the Sith exploited this, attacking them openly. Instead of assaulting the planets directly though, the Triumvirate instigated terrorist attacks and sparked local conflicts on a few select worlds in order to draw the Jedi there. But when they arrived to help the planet, all communication with the valiant Jedi would be lost, as they would utterly disappear, leaving the rest of the Jedi Order stunned and in shambles. Jedi were dying en masse, and they had no idea who was responsible for it, only that they would never be seen or heard from again. The Order eventually discovered this pattern, but they could do nothing to stop it. They couldn't kill an enemy that they could not see, and so fear flew openly in the minds of the Jedi, overtaking their ranks as they quickly decided to scatter, to go into hiding. In reality, what was occurring was that the Sith Lord Darth Nihilus would simply hide in the shadows, catching the Jedi unaware. When they were distracted, Nihilus would reach out and feed off of their very life force, draining them of their energies until they were nothing but ashen husk. As his hunger and power grew, Nihilus was able to feed off of entire groups of Jedi at a single time until his insatiable cravings grew out of control. But while Nihilus searched planet after planet for Jedi, draining everything in sight to look for them, Traya and Sion had their own method for the Jedi Purge. When Darth Traya originally started the Sith Triumvirate, she had gone to the planet of Malachor V, the same one that had been devastated by the mass shadow generator on Revan's command. It was there where Traya found the Trayus Academy, an ancient Sith temple filled with corruptive dark side power. Ancient power. We plan on releasing a full video detailing everything about the Trayus Academy, but what you need to know for this holocron was that Revan had used it during the Jedi Civil War to turn his brethren to the dark side, giving him an instant loyal army. From then, Revan created the Order of Sith Assassins. These assassins were actually still around even after Revan was redeemed, remaining loyal to the Sith. But the cult had been forgotten on Malachor V. But that wasn't until the Lady Darth Traya found them and seized control. The assassins would then be handed over to her apprentice Darth Sion, who essentially became the Vader to their inquisitors, as Sion orchestrated a team of Sith assassins specifically meant to hunt down and kill Jedi. It was theorized that Sion, before becoming a Sith Lord, had even been an assassin himself. The group dispatched themselves all over the galaxy to find and kill all Jedi survivors. This was an extremely chaotic time, as if the Jedi weren't leaving the Order, they were being killed in droves. And what's worse is that the Jedi Council had no idea who was hunting them. The Sith made sure of it. Finally, a single Jedi would commit an act, one which was meant to save the Order, but instead, one that would doom them. Master Atris would call a secret enclave together on the planet known as Katarr. These were the best and the brightest Jedi that still remained in the galaxy, and Atris promised them their safety. Atris had summoned them all there under the pretense of discussing a solution to destroy the Sith, but in actuality, she had gone behind her brethren's backs and were using them as bait to draw out Nihilus. The Jedi had leaked the information about the Jedi gathering to the wider galaxy, hoping to draw out this hidden enemy. But neither she nor any of the Jedi were prepared for the true might of the Sith Lord that appeared. Nihilus had grown so powerful that he was close to planet level. He consumed not only every Jedi at that meeting, but also the entire Merluka population of Katarr. Nihilus left only a single one of them alive and a new apprentice. Atris managed to escape, and the only Jedi that were left would be the surviving members of the High Council. The Jedi Vrook Lamar, Kavar, Zez-Kai-El, and Lona Vash, all of whom made a pact to go into deep exile and preserve the Jedi Order. The Council had a plan They wanted to lure the Sith into a false sense of security, hoping that with the Jedi gone, the Sith would reveal themselves, make them an easier target for the remaining council members to strike. This would mark one of the darkest times in the galaxy, with the Jedi Order truly on the brink of extinction. The Sith Assassins continued to hunt Jedi wherever they could find them, but Sion and Nihilus made a critical mistake, betraying and casting out their master, the orchestrator of the entire purge, Darth Traya. Sion and Nihilus were powerful, but Traya was the mastermind. Traya would then find the former Jedi Mitra Surik, who would take down every member of the Sith Triumvirate. Through Mitra Surik, the Jedi would survive, and although Traya had labeled Mitra the death of the Force, ended up bringing life back to it, fulfilling a greater destiny. This entire event mirrors a volcano, how it devastates a landscape, only for its ash to provide fertile soil from which a lush forest can grow. But we must point the finger at who is truly responsible for this event: Revan. It goes without saying that if it wasn't for Revan's actions, none of this could have set the stage for a Jedi Purge. Revan had done the right thing by taking on the Mandalorians when the rest of the Jedi refused, but in his journey, Revan was forced to cut moral corners to get the job done. He had toyed with the dark side until his mind was twisted by hatred for the Mandalorians. This led Revan to ordering the activation of the mass shadow generator, resulting in the birth of Darth Nihilus. Then, he and Malak both ventured into the unknown regions, and would return as official Lords of the Sith. This resulted in another war that drastically weakened the Order, and set the stage for the Sith Triumvirate to take over. Most people give Revan a pardon for his actions, as Darth Revan and Revan are described as two separate people in some cases, something that is heavily disputed in the lore. But what is questionable to excuse is the newly redeemed Revan flitting back to the unknown regions, instead of attempting to rebuild the Jedi Order that desperately needed his help. Revan could have been this era's Luke Skywalker, but instead, he promised to hunt down and destroy the Sith, ironically setting the stage for the Sith to hunt and destroy the Jedi. After Revan returned, the Jedi acknowledged how powerful he was, but they also seeded a deep hatred for him. They were forced to offer him a seat on the council because of his knowledge and insight. Yet, Revan refused, sensing the Jedi's true feelings about the former Sith. In some circles of the Jedi, he was called Savior, but in most, he was known as a traitor. Although his actions may be justified, by attacking Vitiate's Sith Empire first, Revan was counting on the fact that Vitiate, sensing how weak the Republic was, would make a move. And with Vitiate's Sith Empire, they would have annihilated all of the Jedi and the Republic with ease. Having said that though, Revan still abandoned a Jedi Order and a Republic that were only barely holding themselves together, leaving them at the mercy of a planet-eating monster of Revan's own creation. But my friends, this was the story and the stage for the first great Jedi Purge, something worse than Order 66. We were quite excited to get into this one, so we are eager to hear your thoughts below. Tell us, do you agree that Revan is the one who is largely responsible for nearly destroying the galaxy here, or do you think that he deserves more grace and understanding? And compared to Order 66, which of these two purges do you believe was more successful? The Sith Triumvirate and Sidious left a small margin of error which ended up destroying them, but in the grand scheme of things, some will say that the first Jedi Purge was far more devastating than Order 66. But my friends, what are your thoughts on this lore? And which of the two purges do you believe was worse? As always, my friends, thank you for visiting the archives again today. Reach out and subscribe, and have a great one.